Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. There's not much else to say for an introduction, so let's get right into the news. First, a very interesting thing is going on in Israel. Shock of all shocks. Turns out that they are trying to invade Rafah, and this is basically the thing that is a test for Joe Biden's administration, because we've seen like Joe Biden do like this small little but now it's kind of seeming like it's getting a little too real. So Biden has done something, like he stated that he will not send weapons to aid in the Rafah invasion. How long that lasts, I don't know. How much impact will it have, considering he's still sending money to the Iron Dome? And it's very common for Israel to literally just go like, yeah, we're only going to use this for defensive purposes, America. Oops. Did we say defense? We meant offense. Oops. And shock of all shocks, we've been seeing a lot of people go in really stupid directions in regards to this situation. Like, one of the biggest ones being the fact that we have been, like, remember, like, we all know, like, people like Fetterman, people like Richie Torres have been, like, saying, like, oh, no, we need to support Joe Biden 100% of the time. And now that he's saying we should stop doing as much to aid Israel, all of a sudden, like, they're like, nope, we can't support you anymore, Joe Biden. Well, they haven't explicitly said that, but they've basically just been like, very interesting. And it's even gotten to the point where Jewish Hitler Itamar Ben-Gvir has literally just openly stated that Hamas loves Joe Biden, which is, again, a thing that just really perplexes me and confuses me, that this is, like, even, like, a discussion. Like, I in the most genuine sense, cannot fathom why anybody would support Israel right now. I genuinely cannot understand this. When you're at the point where you are saying that the guy who you've been trying to get to support you this entire time is actually secretly Hamas supporting, then it's like, what's the fucking point? Like this is, I'm honestly contemplating not covering any Israel stuff anymore because it just seems so fucking weird to me. I genuinely can't understand. Genuinely, I have made post after post after post, like, asking fans of the show, like, who do you stand with, Palestine or Israel? And I see people, they still say, like, Israel. It's like, genuinely, if you're watching this podcast and you are pro-Israel, genuinely, in the most genuine sense, comment in this, like, send a comment right now, tell me why. I genuinely cannot understand how you can look at the blatantly evil people who are in charge of Israel and then going, these guys are the good guys. Speaking of Israel not being good guys, AIPAC is doing really shady things again. AIPAC and Republican donors are raising big money for Maxine Dexter against Susheela Jayapal in Oregon. They're doing the same, like, oh, hold on. Pro-Israel donors threw nearly $220,000 behind a Portland, Oregon congressional candidate in a single day this week. The latest indication that the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, is working to block her opponent, who has called for a ceasefire in Gaza and for conditions to be placed on U.S. aid to Israel. The fundraiser adds to a $580,000 haul Maxine Dexter reported raising in just the month of April, after her entire campaign previously had raised $340,000 since December. And Dexter has actually gotten to the point where they will be getting upward of $3 million in dark money spending. Interesting. And they're doing the same thing that they've done in previous elections, where they'll take, like, the money that is from this PAC, but then they'll funnel it into a PAC that seems completely unrelated to Israel. And, like, what happens is that they just, like, it's basically just money laundering. That's what they're doing. And then what ended up happening is that the PAC that has been used as a shadow for this has said, no. That's not what's happening at all. That's not what's happening at all. So then Ryan Grimm simply asked them, okay, then release your donors. Let us know who's donating to your PAC right now. And as of now, I don't think they've responded. A similar situation is happening with Cori Bush, shock of all shocks. Many Republicans are openly backing her opponent, Wesley Bell, who has raised over $65,000 from donors who are prominent for Missouri Republicans. And what is very interesting is the fact that many of these donors were literally funders to Josh Hawley, the person that Wesley Bell literally was trying to run against up until he said, no, the bigger threat is Cori Bush. Because he hates women, I guess? I don't know. And here's the funny thing. I just realized this is a perfect transition point because it's like, these people have been donating to Missouri Republicans. The Missouri Republicans have been donating really hard into Wesley Bell. And people who've been fundraising for Missouri Republicans have been giving money to Wesley Bell a lot. Well, interesting fact about Missouri Republicans. They're trying to make sure that child marriage remains legal in their states. Right here, Missouri bill to ban all child marriages runs into resistance from House Republicans. A bipartisan bill that would outlaw all child marriages in Missouri has run into resistance from Republicans in the Missouri House that could prevent it from becoming law. The legislation, filed by Senator Holly Thompson Reeder, a Scott City Republican, and a Senator Lauren Arthur, a Kansas City Democrat, would prohibit anyone under 18 from obtaining marriage license. Current law allows 16 and 17-year-olds to get married with parental consent. A GOP-controlled state Senate approved the bill on a nearly unanimous vote, 31-1 last month, but the legislation has been stalled in the House committee with just more than a week left of the year's legislative session, which ends on May 17th. Supporters of the bill say that the opposition illustrates some lawmakers' extreme and archaic views on marriage. Missouri previously had one of the nation's most lenient laws regarding child marriage, and state's current law has been criticized as a loophole that leaves thousands of teenagers open to abuse and exploitation. Any explanation used to justify opposition is nothing more than, an excuse to protect predators, Arthur said in an interview. And one of the filthy, disgusting pedophiles is Dean Van Schuich, who has stated that he knew personally a woman who got married around 17, and they're still madly in love with each other. Why is the government getting involved in people's lives like this? I guarantee you, if I looked into this guy's fucking record, he would oppose trans rights, he would oppose gay people, but when there's a law that allows minors to get married, he's okay with that one, because he's more likely just a fucking dirty pedophile. I will say right here, right now, if this guy gets caught with something, it'll be obvious. I'm calling it here right now. And this last news story is not necessarily anything big or notable. I just wanted to include this because I genuinely think this is just kind of funny and kind of showing for a lot of things. So, Florida Democrat deletes a post after being called out over stereotype. So, this is a person you might be familiar with because he's pretty related to a lot of stuff earlier in the episode. Representative Jared Moskowitz has taken down a social media post because you remember Kristi Noem. She made a very controversial move. She made a very controversial move in trying to get the vice presidential nomination by running on an extremely pro-killing dog platform. I don't know why that is the thing that she chose to do. But there's also a moment in the book that it was apparently taken out because there is allegedly a part of the book where she had a meeting with Kim Jong-un, of all people. And it's like, that's weird. And she explicitly made sure that part of the book got removed. And everybody's a little confused, like, why? Well, Jared Moskowitz decided to make a joke about how her and Kim Jong-un love eating dogs. Yeah, and then Jared Moskowitz will then turn around and say, oh, but if you say that we shouldn't kill Palestinian babies, that's anti-Semitism, that's discrimination, how could you do that? But then when he does racism and xenophobia and all that stuff, that's fine. Jared Moskowitz is one of those people that I think he's of the most recent class in the House. So I think I actually go so far as to try and make a worst members of each House class, maybe worst Democrat and worst Republican for each House class. I think that'd be interesting to do. Maybe in the future But anyways, I just wanted to say that because fuck Jared Moskowitz. That guy can eat a dick for all I care. I guess with all that out of the way, we can move on to the main topic of this video. And this episode is going to be somewhat interesting because this is going to be a multi-pronged my problem with. I guess if you're a newer person, you might not necessarily know what this series is, so I guess I'll just do a quick refresher. It's where I talk about a political organization that I think is relatively good, but give them some criticisms. I'll be real, I'm probably running out of steam with this one because, well, you'll see why when we get into the actual episode. But anyways, what makes this one unique is that I'm actually going to be covering multiple organizations in one video. Why? Because I've given some form of praise and critiques to all three of these parties in this video. One more than others, and honestly, I can see why people on the left would generally like all three of them. But yes, we're going to be talking about the entirety of the Japanese left, which is represented by three political parties. Now, some of you might even go so far as to say that the part that is actually represented by four political parties. And in the thumbnail, I do have the Constitutional Democratic Party's logo in there as well. And the Japanese characters that it says there are, he's like, am I not included, or something along those lines. I guess if you're a person who knows Japanese, you'll know what it actually means. But I personally don't consider the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan as left-wing, because they're broadly centrist or social liberal. They're not really leftist. Maybe at best you can consider them progressive, and on a lot of issues they're fine. They are a pretty fine political party, but not compared to the other ones in this video. And I guess while I'm here, I'll mention the very cringy reason why I got involved in, I guess, quote-unquote, got involved in Japanese politics. Because, like many people on the internet, I love Japanese culture. And when I say I love Japanese culture, I mean I love Nintendo and watch some anime. Now, I do also have an actual genuine affinity for Japanese culture to an extent. One of my favorite series on YouTube when I was younger was Gaijin Goomba, who literally would take video games and then go, here's how this connects to actual Japanese culture. He kind of does that now, but he fell off a lot. And so I made it a point to get really interested in this country's politics. Basically, I wanted it to be at least at best I knew a lot about American politics. I knew that, and then I also knew a lot about Mexican politics, and then UK politics, and then I guess Canadian politics. So I guess I wanted it to be the fifth best, maybe higher if I worked hard enough. To the point where literally I researched the parties and then almost immediately just went, yep, I'll endorse this party for this upcoming Japanese election, even though it was literally 2019 and the next election wasn't going to be until 2021, I think. At least that's when it was scheduled at the time. And the first political party in Japan that I had expressed support for was the Social Democratic Party, because that was back in the time period where I was actually, there are some elements of capitalism and socialism that are actually pretty good. So we can take the good aspects of both of them. L cringe ratio. And basically, it was just a way for me to be social democracy is best. But it is actually a pretty good political party, even to this day. Even as I have moved past social democracy, I still have some admiration for the Japanese Social Democratic Party. Mostly because it had a history as the Japanese Socialist political party. It was the Japanese Socialist Party for a long period of time. You may remember that one of their most prominent figures, Inejiro Anasuma, was one of the most prominent Japanese politicians to be assassinated. I wonder if anybody came around to change that. Now, I can actually make a whole video. If I ever wanted to expand into worldwide political parties, I might want to do the Japanese Socialist Party, because it's actually a rather interesting party. Again, if you look at the history, go to the Japanese Wikipedia pages of the elections and then just start clicking in one direction, and you're going to see a lot of things change. And one of the big ones is the constant divisions and unifications of political parties, which is a thing that still goes on to this day. The Constitutional Democratic Party is a merger of a couple of parties. In fact, the Social Democratic Party kind of counts as a part of the merger, because some of the Social Democratic Party politicians merged into the Constitutional Democratic Party, while other ones maintain independence from the Constitutional Democratic Party, but are essentially part of a coalition with them. And for a long period of time, the Japanese Socialist Party would have a division and then reunification based on the right socialists and the left socialists. And the right socialists were basically, again, social democratic politicians who were mostly anti-communist. Meanwhile, the left socialists were not necessarily opposed to communism. They weren't communist in themselves, but they weren't necessarily like, oh, communism is evil, gross, disgusting. But the thing is, it was 100%, like, me supporting that party was 100% like just virtue signaling BS, because the party has basically no power whatsoever. Even to an extent, like, it just doesn't have any power whatsoever. And because a lot of its momentum is sucked up by the left-wing faction of the Constitutional Democratic Party, and now I assume other political parties have been kind of taking some of its thunder in a lot of ways. So, brief problems is that it essentially is a tumor on the Constitutional Democratic Party and doesn't really have much work outside of itself. And also just the fact that it is a socialist party that has moved rightward and has become social democratic. So, kind of cringe. Next major party of the Japanese left is the Japanese Communist Party. I never thought that I would be in favor of the Japanese Communist Party, but bear with me. There's reasons why. Technically, it is the most successful political party on the Japanese left, having 21 members of the Diet. The JCP has another honor among communist and leftist circles, as it is regarded as the largest and most successful communist party in the world, excluding, I assume, one-party states. Now, a lot of people would see that word communist and then go, ew, cringe, gross, get out of here. But I actually wanted to go like, okay, but like, why? Why is it? And then I started doing research into the Japanese Communist Party, and then I realized something. A criticism that I keep making of like communist, Marxist-Leninist parties, the Japanese Communist Party listens to every single one of my criticisms. They do the things that I think that a proper like communist or like leftist party should do. They abandon extreme rigid orthodoxy in order to support a more robust leftist ideology. While the party started, of course, as like a traditional like Marxist-Leninist party, it has sort of drifted away from that. Not necessarily like, it's not like really drifted away. They maintain like a Marxist root, but they do transition it into being more palatable. Like they abandoned, like they quote unquote abandoned Marxist-Leninism back in like the 90s in favor, or like the 70s. At one point, they abandoned it in favor of scientific socialism, which is a ideology that is kind of like it's a communist ideology that is again like a more palatable. And according to many people nowadays, they say that the party is a lot more democratic socialist than communist, but in a literal like sense, like in the most literal sense of the term democratic socialist, wanting to achieve socialism through democratic means, they are actually able to adapt their ideology to the modern world. Wow, what a crazy concept. If only we had an entire region of the world that actually showed that this would be very successful, Latin America. If only we had a country, like a communist party in one of the biggest countries in the world that showed that this type of method could actually work well, Communist Party USA. But another thing that shows that they maintain an actual like leftist ideology is the fact that they actually maintain principles even when the people they should be backing don't. Originally, this party was very much aligned with the USSR, like fully, but then the USSR started being cringe and they were like, yikes, we don't like that. So they denounced the USSR and then joined China in the Sino-Soviet split. Then, when China started doing some bad things as well, they denounced China and stated like, we denounced like the chauvinism of the Chinese Communist Party. And the Chinese Communist Party basically said, okay, then fuck you. And they don't have a good relationship anymore. That's based. That's good. That's amazing. I love it. I love when the left-wing parties actually take, like, look at the people that are, like, maliciously funding them and just like, nah, we don't care. We're going to maintain our actual principles. Like, that shows that you're way more serious than any other communist I can think of, because it's like, when you're a communist and you're able to actually acknowledge, like, the failures of quote-unquote communist states or legitimately communist, like, figures or tanky figures. I've covered this in a previous episode, why I'm not a communist. Like, if you're actually willing to, like, by all intents and purposes, I guess I technically am a communist, but, like, I cannot co-sign that because of the fact that I actually maintain criticisms of these figures. And that's the thing. Like, it seems like if you want to be a communist, you have to then just be like, no, you see, Stalin was actually a good person. Mao did nothing wrong, blah, blah, blah. You have to do these things. But the Japanese Communist Party says, no, we don't think that these things have to be maintained. And they, in fact, acknowledge that these things are incompatible with each other. Maintaining an actual consistent ideology like that would be antithetical to having this hero worship of figures of the past. And another thing that makes me interested about the Japanese Communist Party is the fact that they're actually the most consistent on one issue. You see, ever since World War II, the country of Japan has been a relatively pacifistic nation, to the point where one of the articles in their constitution literally says that the country cannot go to war. And while the right-wing parties have tried their best to pull away and get that amendment taken out, the Japanese Communist Party has been the most firm political party to oppose it. I would think that the Japanese Socialist Party also had that, and I guess by extension the Social Democratic Party as well, but it seems like the Japanese Communist Party is like more hard line on this issue, which is good. This is an issue that I think they should be hard line on. However, they still suffer some failures that communist parties typically have around the world. The party itself is a little bit undemocratic. Like, up until recently, their leader was Kazo Shi, who was their leader for like 20 years. And that's one of the biggest problems. Like, usually a communist party will have a leader who stays around until they decide to retire. And there isn't really that much of an actual process to change the leader or fix them or blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, other parties will like casually switch up their leader through like a party member vote, etc. And like, it wasn't until recently that Kazo Shi resigned as the party leader. And it's only because members of the Japanese Communist Party were like, hey bro, I think we should hold some democratic elections to change who is the leader of the Japanese Communist Party. And he said, screw you, we don't like that. And then he kicked them out. And then after the Japanese Communist Party was like, wait, hold on, what the fuck? Why'd you do that for? And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't have done that. So he resigned and then appointed a new person, a way younger person, because he was also getting up there in age. So it's like, yeah, they have a lot of problems. But I think genuinely there is a lot of things that you could say positively about them. And the most recent political party in Japan that has been a major voice on the left is Reiwa Shinsengumi, a left-wing political party founded by actor Taro Yamamoto. Technically, Taro Yamamoto used to be a member of the Liberal Party of Japan before the Liberal Party decided to merge with a party called the Democratic People, like the Democratic Party of the People, which is a center-right political party. So he was just like, I don't really maintain that viewpoint, because he was of the left wing of the Liberal Party. So he created a brand new political party to push for a left-wing populist agenda. It is also being regarded as left liberal, I guess, to an extent, but it is a lot better than you would think. Taro Yamamoto has gotten a lot of comparisons in the West. One of the politicians that he's been heavily compared to is Andrew Yang, particularly due to the fact that Taro Yamamoto was in favor of a universal basic income, and so too is his party. And many people are like, okay, so then, by extension, he's like Andrew Yang, even though he's very similar to a lot of political figures in the United States. And he's also been compared to Bernie and AOC, like to the point where his party's logo, some people have considered it to be a mimicry of AOC's logo. I don't necessarily know how accurate that is, because, like, again, Japanese cultures, there's a lot of differences, but like I can see the similarities. Now, Yamamoto was active in Japanese politics for a while up to that point, again, as a member of the left wing of the Liberal Party, and some people kind of like considered him like a bit of a show-guardy type guy. Like we get this in the United States, a celebrity who enters politics. Like, a lot of people understand that can be seen as a little bit of a like show-guardy attitude and trying to like make yourself the center of attention. But Taro Yamamoto seemed a little different, especially with the rise of Reiwa Shinsengumi. Because one of the things that is very interesting about the party is that it actually has a specific pet issue that seems a little out of left field. I mean, some of them make sense. Like, Taro Yamamoto was very active in the anti-nuclear power movement, and he has made it very clear that if he got into power, he would ban nuclear power entirely. You know, he also has, generic things like raising the minimum wage, being pacifist in regards to foreign policy, reverse, if not flat out abolish, like any law that was passed by Shinzo Abe. But one thing that's very interesting is his advocacy for minority groups. Like, one is very obvious, LGBTQ people. That's a very common one that a lot of people around the world like advocate for. But one that is interesting is animals, and you can actually notice this because the party logo has a dog print on it. I don't think I included that part. I only included the flag, but yes, one of the, like, on the logo, it literally has like a dog paw on it, so it's like animal rights. But also, he actually advocates for one more minority group. The minority group in question? Disabled people. In fact, to the point where it is kind of like seen as the party's pet issue, advocating for the disabled, to the point where sometimes when it's covered, like, it seems like this is like the one thing that it is like covered as, like, it's a party for the rights of people with disabilities. And genuinely, yes, good. I genuinely think that is a good thing. That Taro Yamamoto is like, I will use my platform to help raise the issue of disability rights, because disability rights are fucked in every part of the world. Like, even the parts of the world where it is like technically fixed on paper. Like, I mean, America has like the Americans with Disabilities Act, but come on, the Americans with Disability Act is broken like all the fucking time. We all know this. Just go around any single place and you see like, how is a disabled person gonna get in here? And the very obvious fact that when we hear Americans with Disability Act, most Americans kind of just default to people in a wheelchair, to the point where it's like, oh, let's just add wheelchair ramps. That'll fix the problem. It's like, that completely ignores things like mental disabilities or anything else. Because a lot of people like just genuinely do not understand disability rights. And we get this all the time where people who are legitimately disabled feel like weird about being disabled. Like, it's common for a young person who is like disabled in their legs and they need a cane to walk, and then they have to use like the disabled parking. And then people will be like, you're not actually disabled, you're just mooching off of it to get free rides and stuff. It's like, fuck off, dude. Fuck you. Like, genuinely. And I think it's empowering that, Taro Yamamoto is going to use his platform and his notoriety as an actor to raise the issue of disability rights. And, again, not necessarily in a way to make it me. He literally, he will have his party list be filled with disabled people. 3 of the party's elected officials that I know of are disabled. Former Social Democratic politician Aiko Kimura, who has cerebral palsy, Yasukio Funago, who has ALS, and Daisuke Tembata, who has a way longer story for how he got his disability. Basically, he got treatment for diabetes at age 14, and due to medical malpractice, it almost killed him, but now he's permanently disabled. Like, he can't use his hands, he can't use his hands and arms properly. I mean, I don't want to say anything, but I'm just saying, I'm going to say that he probably got a certain word said to him a lot when he was younger, because he has that look, quote unquote. But the thing is, it's just like, like, I mean, I saw a video, like, I mean, while doing research for this, I looked at a video of Taru Yamamoto with Daisuke, and I genuinely almost cried, cause, like, Taru Yamamoto, like, he doesn't see Daisuke as any different. He's there. He's a politician alongside him. He won on the list, and they're ready to, like, fight for the issues that they advocate for. Daisuke's face was just so fucking happy, like, that he was there. Because he's like, I mean, like, he's written, like, a lot of things. He's, like, advocated for this issue for a while. And it's just, I mean, you notice how I haven't really said any criticisms of Reiwa, because honestly, Reiwa just seems like an actually amazing party, all things considered. The only criticism I can give with Reiwa is the same criticism I can give to the other two parties and all of these parties together, because there's just one big problem. They don't fucking work together. Genuinely, they don't work together. These parties are all, like, relatively small, and they stand, like, absolutely no chance, like, alone. But united, they could actually do something. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen due to the many different ideological and, like, past conflicts that each of these guys have. Japanese Communist Party being, of course, like, a Communist Party, Social Democratic Party having its tradition in Japanese Socialist Party, Taru Yamamoto being in, like, a liberal left crowd. Unfortunately, I don't think any of those three are going to necessarily work together anytime soon, at least outside of a case-by-case basis. But yeah, hopefully they would do good, and I would genuinely want to have Taru Yamamoto as PM of Japan, or maybe Daisuke. I don't know. Give him a chance. But I just have to be clear. Just have to be blunt. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed of if you're a viewer of mine in Japan who votes for any of these three parties. Well, actually, scratch that. Honestly, if you vote for the Social Democratic Party this year, like, at this point, you're kind of cringe. It's either Reiwa or the Japanese Communist Party, and the only reason why I would advocate for voting for either of them is because Japanese Communist Party is the biggest, like, left-wing party in Japan, and Reiwa is just the party that is the best. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when the future video mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting my Patreon.